What's up, guys? This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. I hope you're doing well. Today's show might be one of the most shareable episodes that I've ever recorded. Last week in the Wall Street Journal, as I'm sure many of you read, life expectancy in the U.S. dropped for the second year in a row after rising consistently for almost 150 years. And what you're about to hear are my recorded thoughts on how this news relates to our individual choices around exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle. I think you'll be surprised at my candid thoughts after reading this article just about a week ago. And as discussions on the subject are ongoing, I hope you'll hear a voice that is very different from the endless comments I've read on social media and different versions of the article. Spoiler alert, this is not a political treatise about the myriad of ways that we should change the things that we do in our country. Instead, well, I'll let you listen and you tell me what you think. But first, let's talk about your protein supplement. Protein is one of the top 3 supplements that I recommend to everyone for a number of reasons. Protein balances blood sugar, protein improves fat burning ability, protein contains the amino acids that are building blocks needed to recover you from your workouts, support your immune system, and boost your metabolism. This is old news. We all know protein supplementation is important, but the question is, are we doing it right? What if I told you that your current protein supplement is gypping you out of fiber, B vitamins, potassium, calcium, and is crushing the environment that your kids will inherit? I'm excited today to tell you about a new protein product that will challenge your mind while supporting a healthier, happier you. Chirps, a company specializing in the art and science of cooking with crickets, has just launched its new protein powder, and it's as delicious as it is awesome. That's right, you heard me, crickets. With 4 grams of naturally occurring fiber, B vitamins, calcium, and potassium, more and more studies are suggesting that cricket protein is far better and more complete for a mammal's digestive tract than dairy, eggs, and even vegan alternatives. And since it uses 1,000 times less water than whey to produce, you can feel good knowing that not only are you passing on healthy habits to your kids, but you're protecting the world they'll live in as well. From now until supplies last, get special deals on the Chirps protein powder through Chirps Protein Kickstarter at the link in the description below. A recipe book, buy 2, get 1 free, and even fun t-shirts await the first brave souls to man up or woman up at the challenge to give bug protein a try. Personally, I prefer the chocolate, but I hear the vanilla is really awesome as well. If you're a bit skeptical of the whole thing, you can see mine and Gabriel's first cricket protein shake experience on YouTube. It's candid. Trust me, you can't script a 3-year-old. He actually thought drinking bugs was a pretty cool idea. The link to that video is below as well. Really, the only precaution in consuming bugs is if you have a seafood allergy. Otherwise, dig in. I'm excited for you to give the next generation of protein products a shot. They taste good, they're good for us, and they're good for the planet too. Click that Kickstarter link to get your protein powder today. Chirps Protein. Eat bugs. Get buff. And now, without further ado, here are my thoughts regarding the dropping life expectancy in the U.S., recorded just after reading the Wall Street Journal article. Man, this is pretty awful. If you haven't heard, I just recently read from the Wall Street Journal that American life expectancy has dropped 1/10 of a year. So in the previous year, it was 78.7 years, and now it's 78.6 years, continuing the decline year over year. It's particularly alarming because we've been rising in life expectancy since even before 1950, all the way up until 2014. To put it into perspective, life expectancy increased through the years of hippies doing crazy drugs, through the years of the dot-com bubble and Backstreet Boys, and even through the relatively recent economic recession. But for a number of seemingly complicated reasons, it topped out and has been declining in the last 4 years. This is Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. Normally I'm pretty energetic and upbeat, excited, and even bringing practical, powerful, and applicable exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle information and practices, but this isn't going to be that kind of show. I've said it at least 100 times, if not more, but the reason that I'm doing this, and the reason people support what I'm doing, and the reason people spread what I'm doing, is because we believe in leaving a legacy of health and fitness for our kids. And when I tell people that what they choose to eat really matters, and whether or not they go to the gym today really matters, and what kind of cardiovascular exercise, and what kind of resistance training, and what time you go to bed, and what time you wake up, all of that really matters. How much caffeine and alcohol you're consuming, whether or not you're providing healthy snacks for your kids, or whether you're doing the simple things like drinking enough water, getting 10,000 steps, maintaining vitamin D, or doing a small amount of research to take the supplements that can help you out when grocery shopping's hard or it's too cold outside to get some sun. When I tell people these things really matter, this number is what I'm talking about. Now, it could be argued that quality and quantity of life are not the same thing, but that doesn't change the fact that there are currently a group of people who have given birth to a generation that might live shorter lives than their parents. And yet we talk about social and political progress, we talk about the progress of technology, and it all seems pretty empty to me as we watch death rates increase from a number of preventable things. What are people dying of? At the top of the list, as always, is cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. Both things that we know are very inextricably related to the rising obesity epidemic. From balancing blood sugar to ensuring regular cardiovascular exercise, we know that the vast majority of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes complications can be well controlled and even reversed through proper nutrition, lifestyle, and exercise practices. There's no reason that needs to be increasing, and there's no reason we need to be passing that on to our kids. But wait a second, Alex, I hear you saying, what about insurance companies, and what about our messed up medical system? Sure, I'm sure they have a role to play in treating these diseases once they show up. But the truth of the matter is, regulating blood sugar through a steady diet of protein, fat, and fiber, and improving insulin sensitivity through 3 days a week of consistent cardiovascular exercise is at the top of the list for prevention strategies for anybody who has a genetic heritage of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. And though it's currently debated how many of these deaths could actually be prevented through natural means, it's undeniable that the choices that we make significantly affect whether or not we will develop cardiovascular disease or diabetes. Even you listening to this know that there are things in your life you could change to put yourself at a lower risk for these things. I've mentioned before how setting a bedtime and a normal wake time significantly improves insulin sensitivity and lowers blood pressure the next day. But I'm amazed at how many of my listeners still don't have a bedtime and wake time. I've talked about how overconsumption of caffeine is driving the production of cortisol, reducing the prevalence of stress hormones and ridding your body of its ability to be resilient to stress. I've talked about the importance of fiber in regulating your body's ability to keep consistent blood sugar. And yet even I'm not perfect about following my own advice 100% of the time. But here's the kicker. I know I'm preaching to the choir when I talk to you. I know that somebody motivated to support and listen to the Defining Dad Bod Show is likely in the top 1 to 5% of people in terms of the responsibility taken upon ourselves for exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle change. But then I walk down the street. I go to Walmart and I look around. I go to family gatherings and I talk to people. I go to church and I shake hands and I see how significantly the health and fitness of most people's lives would be improved if they even just took one piece of that advice. And yet the article reads, quote, "While the economy may be recovering at the macro level, it's very uncertain whether it's affecting the lives of these people." End quote. Not one mention of increasing sedentary lifestyles. Not one mention why the cost of a bag of Cheetos is lower than a cost of a bell pepper. Not even one sentence about the reduced amount of time spent in gym class or recess in our kids' schools. Is the rising cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes just a sign that we're not throwing enough money at the problem? But then the article goes on to talk about the role of the alarmingly increased suicide rate and deaths because of drug overdose on opioids as huge factors in the continued decline of life expectancy. What's causing all this suicide? Why are so many depressed enough to kill themselves? I'm not an expert, but I know when you're exercising regularly, that you're eating what your body needs you to eat, and you have a steady and consistent schedule that promotes health and fitness for you and your family, you're way less likely to end up depressed, and you bounce back from depressing things when they do happen to you. It's tragic to think that in the world of possibility that we live in, that men and women ages 25 to 44 are increasingly deciding to take their lives, and I don't want to downplay that to be as simple as the decision whether or not to go to the gym or eat a Twinkie today. However, I brush shoulders with people regularly, both trainers and non-trainers, who if you ask them, what has exercise saved you from? They would tell you, suicidal depression that if it wasn't for my pursuits and consistency in my own physical fitness, and even my role in helping others to do the same, I wouldn't be here today. It's not something that's easy to share, so you don't hear very much of it. Just last month on our Transformation Stories here, we released a live interview with Miss Casey Beachy, who before becoming a mom struggled with eating disorders and depression, and at one point, despite medications and cognitive behavioral therapy, she was on the brink of suicide, and she credits her pursuit of health and fitness through exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle change with her eventual overcoming of depression and thriving as a mom and a woman. And again, I'm not suggesting that if we all went for a run more often and started trying to make sure that we got 30 grams of fiber in our day, that suicide would magically go away. But just like with the cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes, you know as well as I do that a certain level of personal responsibility with regard to our health and fitness would go a long way in curbing these numbers. Is it possible that going on more walks with our kids, mandating a technology-free family dinner over a home-cooked meal, and including our spouse and our kids and even other family members in our wins and failures with regard to our own physical pursuits, is it possible to affect the suicide rate that way? Is it possible that the clinical studies that show taking a high-quality fish oil can reduce depression, or even the correlations with depression and vitamin D deficiency? Is it possible that a small desire to be better and a simple commitment to the tiniest changes could save us and our communities? In the article, the chief medical officer of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention says, quote, "Scientific understanding of suicide and its risk factors are improving. The science is growing tremendously. We now have answers about how to prevent suicide." End quote. It's powerful to know that there are support systems and growing scientific bodies around how to help those who need the help with regard to suicide. But I don't believe in sitting around and hoping someone's going to save the day. And I don't think you do either. Your example matters. And I know that consistent practices in health and fitness can save someone's life. But what about this opioid crisis? What the heck does exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle change have to do with people overdosing on addictive drugs? 6 years ago, I fell off of a bouldering wall while I was working to train my grip strength for American Ninja Warrior. I was about 10 feet up, I was reaching for a handhold, and my forearms just gave out. Now in bouldering, you don't wear a harness. There's a big, giant, soft, fluffy mat for you to fall back on, and that's exactly what I did. However, I was in such disbelief about missing that handhold that I didn't think much about the landing. My left foot folded up really funny under me, and I felt a pop. If you have a weak stomach, I'll spare you the details. But long story short, I dislocated my left ankle. Interestingly enough, this injury eventually led to me understanding a genetic disorder that I'd lived with all my life. But I'll never forget sitting there in my boot in the doctor's office, him surprised that I hadn't broken any bones, but very concerned about how my ligaments and tendons were going to heal. And he looked me in the eye and said, "Do you want something for pain?" My pain was excruciating. The soft tissue around my ankle had filled up like crazy. It was like I had a softball in my joint, and it had pulled up into my foot and also up over my brace, all the way up my shin, and it throbbed and hurt so bad. But in that moment, all I could think of were family members that I grew up with who took pain pills for one reason or another and seemed to be a shell of their former selves. They would report being foggy-headed. They would even say, "I hate these stupid pills." But they'd take them anyway, just to get away from the pain. And I remember thinking, hell no. I would rather feel the pain than get that addicted to something. I would rather feel the pain. I'd rather grit my teeth every day. I'd rather hobble around on this thing, struggle through work. I would rather cut my foot off than take that stuff. And so I said, no, I'm good with the ibuprofen, thanks. And for the next 12 weeks, I did just that. Grit my teeth, struggled through work, cried in the shower when the wet heat made the swelling worse and the pain got really bad. And there were several times during that recovery that I'd wished I said yes and would happily have taken those pills. Why am I telling you this? For two reasons. The first reason is that much of the pain that many people feel is actually just as preventable as cardiovascular disease. Things like hip pain, back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain, and even pain related to global inflammation has a mountain of research to suggest that an intelligent resistance training program and some careful attention to inflammatory foods can significantly reduce the subjective experience of pain, both short-term and long-term. Am I saying that taking pain pills is all your fault? No, but I am saying that there are many people taking pain pills who probably didn't need to start to begin with, if only they had taken it upon themselves to eat and exercise well and had support systems to help them continue to do so. The second reason I'm telling you this is that not everybody grew up like I did. It was literally a fear of addiction, a fear created by seeing what it does to people, that had me stubbornly committed to ibuprofen, elevation, icing, stretching, exercise, and massage therapy to deal with the excruciating pain of an ankle dislocation. It was brutal, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I made it through, and I even found some meaning in the struggle. And not everybody has that fear of addiction driving them. And hey, maybe it was stupid suffering and I should have taken the pills anyway. Either way, just like cardiovascular disease, just like diabetes, just like suicide, I believe exercise, nutrition, and lifestyle each have a role to play in reducing the amount of physical pain that people feel, the kind of pain that drives the start and continuation of drugs like opioids that provide a chemical escape. I often ask myself, how can my influence and my example reduce the pain that other people feel? It might sound silly, but in the gym, when I see somebody deadlifting funny, I'll go over and say, "Hey, nice job on that deadlift. I saw a tiny thing you could change to keep you from some back injury. Would you mind some free advice?" And when they take me up on that, and I show them how to do it right, I feel like I've done a small thing to contribute to the problem of pain. How do we deal with this life expectancy drop? I'm not an economist, I'm not a politician, and I'm not a technology guru. So I'm not really going to try to address the possible policy changes we could make, the problems related to the medical insurance industry, or even the role social media might be playing in making 25 to 44-year-olds depressed about their lives. I am going to say that reading this article in the Wall Street Journal strangely made me think of Alexander Solzhenitsyn's work back in the 1950s. He wrote a very long book called The Gulag Archipelago because he spent some heart-wrenching time in the Soviet concentration camps. And during that time, he looked around and constantly asked himself, how did I get here? Did I play a role in this? And in his work, he concluded that the large-scale trends in his country that led him to be in this camp were directly related to the personal choices of every single person in the country itself. And in that way, he recognized the role that he played, both small and large, in the titanic, large-scale movements of Soviet Russia. I read sentences like, quote, "Life expectancy for Americans fell again last year, despite growing recognition of the problems driving the decline and federal and local funds invested in stemming them." And I think, gee, that says it all. How often do I know what to do? I'm just not doing it. How often do you know what to do, but just aren't doing it? And how might the path we are or aren't walking affect the life expectancy of this generation or even the next generation? I don't know. It might be too little too late to save some who are walking down the road of cardiovascular disease, or type 2 diabetes disease, or even suicide, or opioid addiction. But as for me and my house, I'm committed to the power of regular exercise. I'm committed to conscious and disciplined fueling of my body and the body of my family. I'm committed to sleeping when I know I should and limiting my intake of things like caffeine and alcohol. I'm committed to being my best healthcare advocate. I'm committed to taking responsibility for the actions that affect my mood, my emotions, my pain, and my physical well-being. And I'm committed to leading by example down the narrow and winding trail that is the world of health and fitness today, so that my sons have some footsteps to follow in, and so maybe I can help some others along the way. What can you commit to live better than you are now? Don't fall into the same trap of these hundreds of comments I see below this article. People typing away their opinions about policies and very large forces outside of their immediate control. Well, if they took only 2 minutes to evaluate their personal health and fitness, they would have an answer. Don't fall into the trap of being a spectator. All of these comments about what our country should or shouldn't do and how messed up the medical system is will probably not go far in helping the situation. But take 2 minutes and ask yourself, what should you stop doing that you know you're doing, that you're willing to stop doing, that's negatively impacting the health and fitness of yourself and those around you? What can you start doing that you're willing to start doing that would positively impact your health and fitness and the health and fitness of those watching you? This has been Alex Van Houten with Defining Dad Bod. I truly think we can make a difference in this number together, and I don't think there's anything better we could do for ourselves or our kids. Until next time, guys, kick butt, take names.